Her Knight in Shining Aria by thenewyorkbrony. Sonata woke with a gasp, her breathing quick and erratic. She looked about herself, staring up at the pitch-black ceiling above her. She couldn't tell what time it was, but she knew it was pretty late since their windowless hideout was quiet. She sat up, her body clammy with sweat. Getting on her feet, she walked over to the tiny bathroom that her, Aria, and Adagio shared. She stared at her reflection inside when she saw the bags under her eyes. Another sleepless night, thanks to her nightmares. She seemed to be the only one having them, since Aria and Adagio slept soundly, while most mornings she sat up thinking until they rose from their slumber. Ever since they were defeated by Twilight Sparkle and her friends, she had been having these dreams of being shrouded in rainbow light, but this time it burned instead of tickled like it had. Sonata grabbed a washcloth from the cabinet below the sink and ran some warm water onto it before wiping it across her face and body. She hadn't realized how cold she was until the damp cloth touched her skin. Feeling somewhat better, the siren wrung the cloth out and hung it out to dry. Turning out the light, she plopped back down onto her sleeping bag, but knew she couldn't go to sleep because she was too scared. She looked around for Adagio, but she wasn't curled up in the reclining chair like she usually was. Her blanket and pillow were laid neatly on the coffee table, undisturbed, which probably meant she had gotten up a while before Sonata, or went out and hadn't returned yet. She could hear Aria snore lightly, indicating that she hadn't left their leader, which meant Sonata wasn't alone, and that gave her an idea. She lightly shook the other girl, whispering her name a few times.
Aria! Ari! Please wake up.
Sonata pleaded softly. The other siren opened an eye.
What?
She barked.
Well, I had a nightmare,
the blue-haired girl explained, twiddling her fingers. She looked away from Aria with a blush that the other girl couldn't possibly see in this darkness. Aria opened her other eye and yawned.
Yeah, and what do you want me to do?
She asked. It was very much clear that Aria wasn't even actually listening to her, just humoring her so that Sonata could leave her alone quicker and she could go back to sleep in peace.
I'm scared,
Sonata confessed. Tough. Aria dismissed her, rolling over.
What? You don't even know what I want you to do about it,
Sonata whined, shaking her awake again, much to Aria's annoyance.
And I'll ask you again, what do you want me to do? Sing you a lullaby? We can't sing anymore, remember?
Aria snipped, facing her.
I know, but Dashi isn't here and she usually comforts me,
Sonata sighed. Now that made Aria sit up.
Adagio? Adagio comforts you? I find that hard to believe.
She scoffed.
No, it's true. She has a soft side, just like everyone else,
Sonata insisted.
She just doesn't show it a lot because she thinks it's a liability.
Do you even know what a liability is?
Aria asked, raising an eyebrow.
It's something that holds you back, right?
Well, now we know you're at least smarter than we thought you were.
Hey!
Aria sighed.
Seriously, though, you're wasting precious sleeping time here. What does Adagio do to get you back to sleep?
She kind of lets me get up on the recliner with her. We cuddle up, she strokes my hair until I fall asleep.
Aria's mouth gaped.
Yeah, now I genuinely believe that's bull.
She folded her arms.
You really expect me to believe that Miss I'm in control all the time snuggles up with you and plays a dotting mother?
Yes.
Go back to sleep, Sonata.
Don't you roll over, Missy,
Sonata snapped, as Aria started to turn. Aria let out a low groan that sounded like a cross between a growl and a snarl.
Now what?
She barked, not even opening her eyes. This had been going on long enough, and she was too tired to continue this conversation any longer.
Can I sleep with you, since Adagio isn't here?
Sonata whispered, her voice growing soft again.
Sonata!
Aria started in a warning tone.
I promise as soon as I'm settled, I'll go right to sleep, and I'll stop annoying you. I swear, pretty please, with a taco on top,
Sonata pleaded, sticking out her bottom lip. Aria sighed heavily.
You're sticking out the lip, aren't you?
Mm-hmm,
the blue-haired siren responded. Aria sighed again.
Fine, get your butt up here before I change my mind,
she said defiantly, but couldn't help but smile.
For realsies?
Sonata shrieked, getting onto the couch.
Thanks, Ari.
She said, hugging the other girl.
No mention it.
Aria told her with a thin smile.
Seriously, don't mention it. Like, ever. Not even to Adagio.
'Kay.
Sonata beamed, getting comfortable on top of Aria. She laid herself between the other girl's legs and stared up at her with a slight blush on her face. Aria started blushing too, as she felt the slight heat radiating off of Sonata. She let out a little squeak when Sonata put her hands on Aria's chest and laid her head on it. She watched as Sonata closed her eyes.
Hey, Ari. I can hear your heartbeat. It's beating kind of fast.
Sonata teased with a giggle.
Is something making you nervous?
It was hypnotic the way Aria's chest rose and fell every time she breathed.
Nope, I'm good,
Aria lied. She watched the other girl yawn and wrapped her arms around her to keep her close. The warmth from Sonata felt good, she had to admit.
Well, okay. Good night, Aria,
Sonata told her, barely able to get the words out before sleep claimed her.
Yeah,
Aria responded to her.
Night.
She sat rigid for a while, until she, too, fell asleep, her head lolling back against the couch arm rest, thinking that the warmth of the girl in her arms was better than any blanket she's ever had. A few hours later, Adagio returned home to find Sonata's sleeping bag empty. She assumed that she must have had a nightmare. She went over to the recliner and found it empty. Interesting. Usually when Sonata woke up, she would go straight for her, though she guessed that since she wasn't home, she decided to do what she usually does until she came home. That is, until she heard the sound of combined snoring. Adagio turned around, walked over to the couch, and raised a brow at what she found. In the light coming from the open front door, Aria had her arms wrapped around Sonata protectively while Sonata snuggled up to her. Interesting. Those two were never this buddy-buddy. Not only that, Aria was the last person she would consider agreeing to comfort Sonata, especially not in a way that looked so intimate. She smirked. It couldn't be helped. Her little idiots were starting to like each other. She couldn't say she didn't see this coming, but still, it was kind of humorous. She couldn't wait for the inevitable moment when they'd wake up in the morning. Aria would try to play it off as some dumb favor while Sonata hung on to her like a schoolgirl with her first crush. Adagio closed the door, leaving the room pitch black once again. She stretched before reaching for her blanket and pillow. She chuckled quietly as she curled up into the recliner. One thing was for sure, whether Aria liked it or not, she was now Sonata's knight in shining armor. The end.